This is a finishing touch recorded in 2025 to a project that I finished back in 2022. I stand behind all of the work that I do. Even when it doesn't go viral, it still matters. The nature scenes that are present throughout this video is actually the first time that I started using nature as a theme that would continue throughout my content, in my meditation, in my music videos, in my podcasting. I decided to do my new project in this way because it provides a bigger tent. I actually do not believe that anyone is gay or bi or straight or any of the sexualities that we've defined. I believe that they're all made up words that are used to divide us and pit us up against each other. The truth, I believe, is that sexuality is complicated, it's beautiful, and it's unique, and it is human at its core.
Once you start, it's all, in many ways, it's all kind of downhill from there.
Where is that apprehension coming from? What is it that you are afraid of? And if the worst thing that you're afraid of were to come true, what does that really mean?
One person can make a big difference, and you don't know how a video from one person can really help change the mind of someone else, or really change the life of someone else.
So a tweet from me and a tweet from you and a tweet from Barack Obama all show up in the same thread, and so we all have the same opportunity to make an impact and a difference.
This is also the first all-inclusive, intergenerational, multi-ethnic center created by African Americans. That's for everyone.
I'm hoping that people will look back at this point of time of humanity and say, wow, all of those people on the planet moved the human race forward.
Always say yes. Always. And also go in small groups, 1 or 2 people.
I have my own schedule, so I definitely don't work from 9 to 5. I'm actually against it.
Me being gay or straight had nothing to do with my ability to be excellent, to achieve at high levels.
It was an investment that paid off. I had faith in myself, and, eventually I made that money back.
Public service can be seen as a noble duty, which is that of public service, and that it is an honorable profession, and that it is fundamentally to serve.
Basically, anybody who is alive is touched by financial planning, because you can't get through the day, the week, the month without somehow coming in contact with your money or your finances or needing support. So it's a great topic and it's great timing.
The success of a relationship is not measured by its longevity. But the success of a relationship is really about how you grow and are present.
Folks can't see this, but we're in a private room with chandeliers and bangles and bedazzled mirrors. This is like Liberace's house. We're doing this interview.
We're a well-kept secret, so we can't tell everybody.
Hello, this is part 2, celebrating some of the interviews and content from the past 10 years on GA. Freedom is mainly what I think about as I listen to this. Freedom to be where you want to be, do what you want to do, disclose or not disclose something about yourself, control your financial destiny, own your schedule, recharge. These conversations offer gems for living well, believing in yourself, and some nostalgia from the past. Here's a fun, nostalgic moment in 2013 when the Defense of Marriage Act was struck down, and Marin John's reaction to that.
Oh my God, it is so important. I can't tell you the relief I feel mostly, and also I feel pride because I made a choice to move to this country and live in this country because I am originally from Australia, and I think that I come from an outside perspective where, like many people who come from other countries, they look at the American dream and they look at how America has evolved it is the standard bearer for personal freedom. And this is so important when you are a gay person and you're making your way in the world as an outsider, as somebody who has to kind of weather all sorts of prejudices, which can start with your own family. The very people closest to you who are supposed to love you unconditionally might not. And then you've got to come from that situation into the world where everybody you meet might also disapprove of you. So I know I look to America as an example where, oh, here's a country that says human happiness is an inalienable human right. That's music to my ears. And when you see something like DOMA being repealed, it's just proof that this country is so important as a standard bearer of human rights. And I think that the big civil rights movement that we are in the middle of, and I count myself very lucky to be part of it, is the gay and lesbian rights movement, and the transgender rights movement too is really probably the big one to watch.
This is very relevant now because, of course, the Supreme Court went on to legalize marriage across the land a couple years later, and the Respect for Marriage Act passed just this month, protecting the fundamental rights of all couples to marry. Had to hit her up for some career advice, too.
My advice always would be to start with yourself. Be your most authentic self. And yes, it's fine to listen to people, but don't ever do anything because you think other people want it. Don't ever do anything because you think you've got to please somebody else. Ask yourself, what do you want? And if you feel something's missing and there's something you don't have, I can bet you that there's, 10,000 other people out there who would completely agree with you.
Wade Davis talks here about shame.
One of the other things is that I stopped putting shame and stigma on me, right? So I don't use the term coming out of the closet anymore. Like, I'm a human being. Human beings don't live in closets. Like, wire hangers do. Dirty shoes do. Monsters for little kids do, not people. So, and there's a lot of shame and stigma on the idea of being in the closet. So I'm no longer going to say that about myself. I just chose to not disclose something to people, and people do that all the time. So I didn't do anything wrong, right? I think it says more about the country and the world that we live in that I didn't feel safe to tell everyone who I was. So I'm going to stop putting that shame and stigma on me by saying that I came out of some closet.
Some advice from him about being your best at anything that you do.
The biggest thing is to be persistent. Honestly, a coach once told me, and it was my favorite quote. He said, "Wade, what are you gonna do when no one's watching, right? That am I doing everything that it takes to be the best? So whether it's me wanting to be the best comedian or talk show host, like I need to make sure that I actually have the talent and the skills to back up any job that I'm going for. So I don't give a person any reason to ever reject me. Just because if I'm trying to be an accountant, I have my degree, I have all these actual things, I got the skills to pay the bills, so that if a person tells me no, it's not about me, it's more about them. And then from that point on, then you can run it up the flagpole and really point out the fact that you're being discriminated against, which has nothing to do with your actual abilities.
It's hard to overstate the importance of this next piece about inclusivity. The other day, I was thinking about how the world does need more love, and I want that even for my greatest enemy. But then I thought of a group of people who are an exception and don't deserve love. Those who shoot up churches and nightclubs and grocery stores. And then I remembered what Wade and Stuart Milk, Harvey Milk's nephew, said about inclusivity, and I thought about how could we make people feel more included earlier, before it gets to that point?
Well, I think it's a little bit in the messaging, right? One of the big things that You Can Play does is we never tell someone that the way they believe is wrong, right? If I'm trying to have a conversation that's inclusive, I need to also include people who may think differently from me, right? If someone says that I don't like gay people and I say, well, I don't like you, then the conversation ends. And there can be no shift in consciousness, right? But if someone says, hey, I may have an issue with someone being gay, I say, okay, let's talk about it. Like, like, tell me more about your story. Like, someone may tell me a real awful story about how, you know, X, Y, and Z happened, and it really framed their understanding of what it meant to be gay. And I can help to reframe that and say, hey, you know, and like, this is not how all gay people are. Like, we're not a monolith. And someone goes, hey, you know what? I never thought about it in that way. So now just that one conversation, just the fact that I was open and spacious in my understanding that there's a chance that the other person can be. And I think if we approach life from that framework, then there is also a chance that the You Can Play project can go out of business.
You know, my uncle had this amazing gift. If he walked into a room, and I didn't just see this in terms of his public side, in his family side, if he walked into a family gathering, I would find him finding the person who felt the least included. And it had nothing to do with sexual orientation. They just felt, whether they were an older eccentric member of the family or, you know, my maternal side of the family, which he wasn't related to, he would go up to them and engage them and include them. You know, he believed that our differences was a strength and not a weakness, and that strength was extremely important. He had this Native American saying that he gave to me when I was 12 years old, which is that you and all your differences is medicine that will heal the world, even when the world doesn't recognize that. And he absolutely believed that.
And more about Stewart's iconic uncle, Harvey Milk.
He's a martyr, which is, you know, he knew that those bullets were coming. He didn't know who and he didn't know when, but that famous quote that let the bullets that enter my brain smash through every closet door, you know, is really something that we need to teach, because if we don't, we can go back.
I hope we can guide our world towards language where we no longer need to define sexuality and just accept that people are people. People have sexual needs. Next is Aaron Bailey on addressing what he sees as America's problem.
I see really a fundamental problem in our country right now, that we need to get back to that entrepreneurial spirit of basically identifying problems in our communities and solving them and making money doing it. And I think that's such a powerful concept.
Has how he identifies helped or hurt him in his career?
I don't think it's hurt me at all. You know, we get to choose what clients we work with, and I can't say that I've ever had a client not work with us because myself, it really hasn't been an issue really in business at all, which is great. Mm-hmm. You know, I think I've never made it an issue. I think I want to be judged on my skills, on my drive, on my ambition, on all of those things.
That's exactly the way it should be. Here's Eden Lane on being the first out transgender mainstream television news journalist.
When I started covering for Colorado Public Television politics, it didn't occur to me that no one else who was transgender had done it before, nor did it occur to me to keep it quiet. It wasn't like on my credentials.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a secret either, and it never occurred to me until later when there was some bad press about some of the interviews. Some of the politicians who sat down with me, they got some flack, not only for what they said, but for sitting down with the, quote, transsexual journalist, unquote. And I thought, I'm not really sure how that's relevant. And that's when I was told, the reason it's relevant is because you are the first.
Here's some advice for becoming a journalist, and it can be used for any career or trade.
The advice I would give is, if you want to be a journalist, make sure that you learn your craft, you learn the ethics of journalism, you really hone those skills, especially writing. Even if you're working on television, writing is important, although the writing style can be very different. But the other thing is, what's exciting now is you don't have to wait for someone to give you permission to be a journalist. You don't have to wait for someone to give you permission to work on film, no matter who you are, because you can find equipment readily available and you can just make it. And you can start publishing it. And even if you're in J school, you should still start publishing your own work, even if it's just for a tiny audience of your family, so you have that diverse experience of doing the work and getting it out there and getting the feedback from people who read it or watch it or listen to it. I would say just roll up your sleeves and do the work.
This is Jonathan Lovitz talking about taking on new opportunities.
Just say yes. The most incredible things that have happened in the course of my career have all happened because I closed my eyes, took a breath, and did the thing that absolutely terrified me. Whether it was, jumping from the stage to television, whether it was saying yes to going from, television to working with the community as a speaker, which, I didn't think I was qualified to do. Turns out it's the thing I'm most qualified to do and love doing. But if I had not taken that risk, I never would have found that out. You can always get out of a situation you don't like, but you'll never be able to say yes again once that door closes. So try it. Go for it all you've got. And be open to every possibility and, meet luck with preparation, and you'll have nothing but success.
As a communications professional, how he gets out his message.
Sincerity, earnestness, humility, all of that, being just forthright and honest with your message. Don't try to cover it up in too much spin, but also align yourself with the right people. That's what we do every day of our lives. We try to connect with those who can take our passion and amplify it and make us feel great about the work we do. And one of the keys to my success in media and communications has always been connecting with people that agree with and want to amplify the work that I'm doing. Use the resources that are available to you. Like I said, the internet's the most wonderful equalizer there is. So if you need to connect with someone, find them, connect with them. You're usually one email away.
Nita Henry's concept of stuckness here is so beautiful.
Stuckness is a part of the journey, I think. There is a time where, and that has nothing to do with your age. Stuckness would happen in any of those decades that I described, that you might have a sense of stuckness. But I look at stuckness very different. I think stuckness, I don't even know if that's a word. Stuckness,
It is now.
It is now. Stuckness is time for pause. That's what it indicates to me, that it's time to pause and make decisions about what's next. The worst thing you can do in stuckness is just leap from stuckness to get to the next, what is probably another stuckness. So if you use this period of stuckness to really contemplate what brings you joy, you'll find that where you go next is less of a leap and more prescribed. And the likelihood that you'll stay there in joy really increases. So I guess what I'm saying to you is use your stuckness to your advantage, because it's designed for you to have that feeling. It's an indicator that that's not where you're supposed to be.
On running for office while she was fighting cancer, and advice for people considering running themselves.
And I believe with all my heart that not only was I not supposed to win, but that race was really a race for my life and not about a political seat. I also believe I proved to a whole lot of people that the power of the community can collapse the biggest machines, because we almost did, with no endorsements whatsoever. So my lesson and my advice to anybody that wants to run is run with fire in your belly, but know what's causing the fire. And if the only fire that you have is because you want to be a politician, then I would say go back to your place of stuckness and think about it. But if that fire in your belly is about something bigger than you, go for it.
Staying on the topic of politics for a minute, I believe Joe Biden saved our democracy in 2020. Here are some thoughts from Evan Lowe during the Trump presidency about our political process. He really foreshadowed what was to come.
As we all are attempting to do what we can in making sense of who currently occupies the office of the president, it's important that we stay engaged. And so now more than ever, we must continue to be dedicated to the things that we care about. So it's an ongoing process, but I'm hopeful that we can continue to build on our community. The president of the United States right now in the office gives me drive to be that much more engaged in the process, even more so than I currently am. And what it has done is demonstrated how fragile our democracy is, and how fragile our communities are, and so how easy it is to be seduced by the negativity that is human nature, but rather we must be intentional and purposeful at demonstrating the best of our abilities to be engaged and to work hard to be interconnected to each other and to love one another and to respect differences and to respect difference of opinions. So that's what I would use right now as we are having this conversation in December of 2017 and thinking about what is our obligation and what is our role in society.
I'm happy to see democracy working again in 2022 across America. And back to ambition with Evan.
When you think about ambition, you think about drive and passion and what motivates an individual. In other words, what gets us to wake up every day and go to work or find purpose. And for me, at least where I'm at my current position now, I derive purpose and pleasure out of the desired outcome for the things that we fundamentally care about.
This is Joe Hawkins on his very public fight in the 1990s for custody of his son and why that fight was so important to him. This was a long time ago, but without this fight, the LGBT community may not have some of the same freedoms that are enjoyed today.
The phone finally rang, and when I answered it, it was Oprah Winfrey. And so I said, she said, Joe, we know about your situation, and we'd love to have you on the show. We're sorry this is happening to you. Will your mother come on the show with us? Will she come with you?
Yeah.
And I said, well, my mother is very religious, and she's very homophobic, and I don't know. And they said, well, can we get her number? So I gave them the number. They called her. She hung up on them. Oprah called me back and said, Joe, please call your mom because she hung up on us. And so I called her. I said, hey, Mom, did you just get a call from anyone? And so she said, yeah. Some fool called here saying they were Oprah. I said, that was Oprah. And then Oprah said, hello, Mrs. Hawkins. And my mother just screamed. And she's like, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. And she asked her, will you come on the show? That was the first time in history, not even just a black man, but any gay man had ever been featured on a national television show fighting for his right to keep his child. After that, of course, I raised my son here in Oakland.
Yeah.
I have 3 grandchildren now. So that fight, I never stopped fighting. I never wanted another LGBTQ person to be in a situation where the government or somebody could take their child because they're gay.
Okan Sengun discusses his first immigration case where he helped someone seek asylum in the United States.
In 2015, I co-founded the LGBT Asylum Project. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization providing free legal services for LGBT asylum seekers who have been persecuted in their home countries for being either who they are or who they love, and basically because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. Our clients mostly come from Nigeria, Uganda, Saudi Arabia, places where being LGBT is punishable by death. The first pro bono case that we did through the nonprofit, I would say that's the case that I remember because it was our first case, and it was a gay man from Nigeria, and he's been arrested while he was hanging out with his boyfriend somewhere in Nigeria, and then being put in jail. And he was tortured in jail just because they were kissing, I believe, and just maybe not fully clothed. So then he was released, but then he had some issues with his family members. They tried to attack him, so he had to leave the place where he was staying. So he was homeless at some point. And then he found a way to get to the United States. And we were able to help him because he had no financial support and nowhere to stay, no one to talk to. Yeah, and then his case we actually got to expedite his case, and now he's the green card holder, actually.
The most important thing to know about asylum in the United States is the deadline.
There's a 1-year deadline to apply for asylum. So a person can only apply for asylum within the first year of their arrival into the United States. If they miss that 1 year deadline, it's really hard for them to prove why they couldn't apply. They need to show some extraordinary circumstances.
Pablo De Luca and Gustavo Noguera giving us lighter content about how experiencing new places is a part of growth and freedom. They talk about their country, Argentina, as a destination.
Argentina was the first country where you can get married, so I think
even being tourists, you don't need to marry an Argentinian. Two foreigners can come to our country, can get married in less than 5 days, because they have the same civil rights as any Argentinian.
Come to get married to Argentina.
You have to imagine a European city in Latin America.
Yeah.
Especially with Buenos Aires. Maybe it sounds like arrogant, but when you go there, you never imagine that you are going to experience a European city in the middle of Latin America. Maybe the rest of the country has their own personality, and different cities, different, because we have from jungle to
snow.
Yeah, to snow.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's a big country.
Staying in that vein of destinations, Ed Salvato shares experiencing and writing about travel.
It's really the twofold. It's that I try to nail the destination itself. Like, what's the? I mean, it's hard to do in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days or 10 days. But what is that feeling?
Yeah.
And then what are the people like?
Yeah.
And especially the gay people. But what is that? So people really. That's what people. I think that's what people hear, and that sort of resonates for potential travelers or armchair travelers or people who never travel. It's like once they hear like, oh, Thailand is not really foreign and scary and approachable. It's really warm people who have a language that reflects their warmth. And it's a destination that is like, at the same time, like otherworldly, but easy to navigate through. So if you can just epitomize or boil down, I don't use like these words, but find the sort of the gestalt of a destination and impart that. And I think it kind of always parallels with the people. And the key for me is always, I just talk to people. I learn a little bit of the language, use it, and talk to people. So even if, and I try not to be with groups of Americans because that's the worst kind of, I mean, they're fabulous, but you'll never meet anyone if you're in a group. So be by yourself or with another person and just speak to someone in their language and you just start learning a lot about a culture.
I like this from him here about trusting instinct.
Don't feel forced to do anything that it doesn't feel natural. Like if it feels right, it's probably right. And if it feels wrong, it's probably wrong. And that's true whether it's a dating situation or an entrepreneurial situation or just accepting a job or not accepting a job.
Chris Parente always brings the fun, and as an interviewer, he's talking about the key to a great interview.
I'm a little weird. I'm very high energy, and I believe in being totally yourself and being as unique. I like weird questions. I like off-the-wall questions. So much of what's on TV and online is boring and vanilla and repetitive, and everyone's scared of making a fool of themselves. I make a fool of myself daily. I'm not scared of it. So when I'm interviewing anybody, I like to get to the core of who they really are, and I like to ask weird stuff, stuff you're not going to hear 50 other places. So
here's what gets him up and going.
I do get up very early, so I rely on caffeine a lot. I have an IV drip of caffeine. But mostly, I've just come to the place in my life, I'm a little older, where it's all a blessing. It's all a miracle. I'm so thrilled to be doing what I'm doing, to be alive and happy and healthy, that it isn't fake. When I am over the top excited and energized, it really is who I am. I mean, when you get right down to it, it's a blessing to be able to do what we do. And it should be fun. If you're not having fun, you should be doing something else. It's kind of my philosophy. So that's where I get a lot of the energy.
Some cool life and career advice.
I would say that one mistake I made, if I could tell anybody out there in their career or life, you've got to, and it sounds Oprah, another one I love Oprah. It sounds sort of Oprah-esque. You got to learn to just fully love yourself and trust yourself and be okay with yourself as you go along in life. Because I spent too many years in my 20s really worried about what other people think and adapting who I was to make sure I wasn't going to offend anybody. And, to thine own self be true. I think the more fully you are true to who you are, whatever that is for you, the more successful you will be in your life and the happier you'll be. And one of the blessings of turning 30 and into my 30s, you'll learn not to give a shit, is the bottom line.
Carl Sandler on growth and relationships.
So I think that first and foremost, there's different types of growth that we do as people. Some of that growth involves personal growth, right? And it involves, understanding who you are and understanding, what you need to do to be successful and happy, that balance between life and work or money and poverty. And there's other types of growth that I think can only happen in a relationship with someone else, right? So, you can think, oh my God, I've done all this work, I'm such an amazing person, but actually when you are in a relationship and you're in a relationship that is active and engaged in the way, in sense that you're working with your partner to genuinely understand each other, to share what's going on, to actually discuss, the really difficult things, to basically minimize that inside voice that you have where you're thinking your own thoughts and really bring the other person into your process and make yourself vulnerable. I mean, those things happen over time, slowly.
About entrepreneurship being a team sport.
One of the myths of entrepreneurship in general, in my experience, is the idea that you are a single entrepreneur. The reason why that myth, I think, is perpetuated is because, when Inc. magazine or Wired profiles someone, a lot of times they like the idea of profiling one person. Hey, here's Mark Zuckerberg, and look at what he did on his own. But actually, I found that it's actually not only a myth, but it actually undermines your ability to be successful. And in all my own startup companies, I have always been blessed to have business partners and people who really helped to support me along the way, both as investors, as advisors, as even as employees, but in a way where they weren't just employees, they were actually a member of the team. And so I think that one of the most important things is to find people who also share your vision, who also can be empowered and motivated to make the dream happen with you.
Marina Rice Bader discusses films that she makes and the importance of a niche audience.
Everything I do is for the lesbian niche audience, which of course ripples out to women. That's who I make my movies for. Our films are made by women, for women, telling our stories. And the beautiful layer, of course, is that the relationships in the films are between women. Because love is love, and it just doesn't matter. And speaking about the business part of this, when you make indie films, you have to have a niche audience. If you don't have a niche, you're going to flounder in all the tiny little films out there that folks can afford to make these days. And so it happened that my finding this niche was beautiful in all ways, and I'm so grateful to my audience. They're very supportive. I call them my sisters, my soul sisters.
And again, on trusting that instinct.
What do I need for myself to make this a wonderful experience? And then I realized I do not work well by rules. I never have. I never will. And so I'm like, screw the rules. What feels good to me? And what felt good to me was to have a film that's completely organic and visceral and driven by my instincts of what I want to do as a filmmaker and as a storyteller. And as soon as I said that, I probably said it out loud because I talk to myself a lot, I'm like, holy shit, that is exactly how I have to be thinking about it. Because if I'm not creating something that I am excited about, passionate about, just happy every single second I'm creating it, how is it going to be good?
Joshua Hunt on marketing.
I think it's anything. You got when you're marketing, you're trying to display the purpose or the why behind your company, not the what you do. And there's been lots of talks around that, and it's really you got to give people a brand or a concept to attach to, and that they'll want to take ownership in with you.
John Roberts on portfolio strategy for investing based on values.
The foundations of Denver Investments rest on research. We have decades of experience tailoring portfolios to each individual client's preferences and their values. We manage a lot of money for a variety of foundations and endowments, and they all have different value sets that we have to invest to. There's no one catch-all socially responsible investment. One person's particular values aren't necessarily another's. Our initial conversations we had with our first client in the LGBT foundation space back in the late 90s really centered on how to invest with their values geared toward treating LGBT employees with dignity, respect, and equality, and also fulfill their obligation to provide the foundation with good investment returns.
And on habits and personal finance.
Work hard, play hard.
Work hard, play hard.
I get up really early in the morning. I go to the gym. I was doing yoga this morning at 6 a.m. Stay active and enjoy life. Don't sweat the little things that you can't control. But get your finances organized online.
Yeah.
It gives you a good way to tell where you're spending money, where you're saving money. Save money in your 401k plan. Demand a quality-minded investments in your company's 401k plan. And so really at a very early age, if you can start saving, every dollar you save today means less time you have to work when you're in your 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Greg Knight closes us out on financial planning and investing, which seems timely in this economy.
So we're not necessarily brokers or traders, but we are there to guide you and to help you stay on track and to help you meet those goals, those planning goals that you've set up for yourself. And it's really hard during a downturn, especially like you mentioned 2000, and then in 2008 we saw almost a 40 or 45% drop in the market. It's really hard to convince people that now's the time to up your contribution and now's the time to put more money into your investments.
They're scared
and rightly so. But it's absolutely true, because when the markets turn and start to recover, you can never time that bounce. Yeah. And that's when you get some really good return or growth in your investments, and that's when you'll really see that putting that extra money in all markets, whether it's up market or down market, is the thing to do, especially if you have time.
And lastly, he discusses financial planning for entrepreneurs.
As an entrepreneur, you're going to have costs that crop up that you may not have planned for, but all those costs are yours. You have to own them. And you may have good months, you may have bad months as far as clients paying and income coming in, so your cash flow is going to be more erratic. So you really want to plan from the beginning that you have some cash on hand and that you're able to cover your operating expenses. So you need to get a really good handle on what those are. And I would recommend meeting with other entrepreneurs, people who are in the same business as you, and just ask them, because a lot of times we're shy to ask people. Yeah. When I first wanted to launch my firm, I didn't know if I was even able to reach out to other advisors and say, how do you file this form? How much does it cost? Yeah. What do your clients pay you? Yeah. But you really need to do that. And you'll find that in most industries, people are more than willing to share, because you're not all fishing out of the same pond, so to speak. And at the same time, you need to become your own CFO.
Gay is just a word. A loaded word, yes, but still a word. It can mean happiness and brightly colored and brilliant, and it can mean loving on the same sex. Define it how you want. I think everyone falls somewhere on a spectrum, and it's all love. Sending you my love and good energy and good vibes and a happy and blessed holiday season. Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you go now.